The arrival. The Deathworlders had always believed they were alone at the top of creation. For generations, they carried that pride with them like armor. Their planets were cruel and merciless, filled with predators that tore flesh apart, storms that could crush cities, and skies that rained fire. Only the strongest of their kind had survived. Only the ruthless had ruled. To be born as a Deathworlder was to be hardened by suffering and raised in battle. Other species feared them, and rightfully so. When scouts reported a new world on the edge of a quiet arm of the galaxy, their leaders barely noticed. It was just another green-blue sphere orbiting a yellow sun, with forests, oceans, and mountains. To them it looked harmless, soft, and peaceful. They expected to find weak prey or fragile creatures too delicate to endure what they had endured. But when their ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, the Deathworlders felt something unexpected. It was a weight in the air, a pressure against their chests, as if the planet itself carried a challenge. The air was thick with oxygen, almost too much, and the gravity pulled harder than what they were used to. It felt like stepping into a battlefield that never ended. The first landing team moved through dense jungles. They expected silence, but the world screamed with life. Insects buzzed in swarms, birds shrieked overhead, and hidden creatures growled from the shadows. The air was humid, hot, and heavy. Some of the alien soldiers shifted uneasily, their armored suits dripping with condensation. One muttered, "This world breathes like a predator." Hours later they reached a human village. At first glance, the people seemed unremarkable. They were smaller, softer, walking on two legs with bare skin and no claws. They looked fragile, but when the Deathworlders watched closer, their unease deepened. They saw humans moving through the forest with ease, carrying heavy loads that would break the bones of other species. They saw hunters chase prey with nothing but sharpened sticks, enduring long hours without food or water. They saw children laughing in storms that would have killed the young of any other race. The aliens felt something they were not used to: confusion. The commander of the Deathworlder squad, a towering figure with dark armor and burning eyes, narrowed his gaze at the humans. "They should not be alive," he whispered to his second-in-command. "This planet should have broken them, and yet they thrive." That night, as rain lashed against their camp, the Deathworlders heard distant drums. The humans were gathered by fire, their voices rising in song. It was not the song of prey. It was something older, something primal. A sound that echoed with defiance. One soldier shifted uncomfortably, his clawed hands tightening around his weapon. "They are not afraid," he said quietly. "Not of the storm, not of the dark, not even of us." The commander did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the glow of human fires burning through the night. The next day, they followed a trail into the mountains. The climb was brutal. The air grew thin, the rocks sharp, and the path deadly. The Deathworlders' suits strained under the pressure. But when they reached the ridge, what they saw left them silent. Humans lived there too. Thin, strong figures walked along cliffsides as if the deadly heights were nothing. They carried loads across rope bridges that swayed in the wind. They smiled in the face of thin air and freezing cold. Some even laughed as they worked. The second-in-command shook his head in disbelief. How can they survive both jungle and mountain? How can one species endure so much? No one answered. For the first time in their long history, the Deathworlders did not feel superior. They felt something else creeping in, uncertainty. That evening, the commander gave the order to test the humans. A squad approached a hunting group at the edge of the forest. The aliens expected fear. They expected the humans to run. But when the armored soldiers stepped out of the shadows, weapons raised, the humans did not flee. One of the men, lean and scarred, simply stood his ground. His eyes met the glowing alien gaze without flinching. His hand rested on the crude spear he carried. Behind him others formed a line, their faces calm but unyielding. There was no panic, no surrender, only defiance. The air grew tense. The Deathworlder soldiers hesitated, unsettled. Their commander stepped forward, towering over the human. His voice was low, like thunder. "Do you not understand what stands before you?" The human lifted his chin. His voice was steady, his words sharp. Do you not understand what stands before you?" Silence followed. The commander's claws tightened. For the first time, he felt the chill of doubt crawl down his spine. They returned to their camp in silence. No one spoke. No one boasted of strength or conquest. They had expected fragile creatures. Instead, they had found something else. That night, as the fires of human villages burned once more across the dark horizon, the commander whispered the thought none of them wanted to admit. "We thought we were alone at the top," he said, "but we are not." And with that, the legend of humanity began to spread among the Deathworlders. The test of strength. The Deathworlders had always tested the strength of those they met. It was their way of measuring life, through survival, through battle, through hardship. And now, with humans standing before them without fear, the Deathworlders needed answers. Were these strange beings truly strong, or was their defiance just an illusion? The commander of the alien squad did not order a full attack. Instead, he chose a test. A single contest, simple but deadly. One of his warriors, a massive figure with armored claws and muscles layered like stone, stepped forward. His growl echoed through the forest. He pointed at the human with the scarred face who had dared to meet his gaze the day before. The message was clear. A duel, one against one, the humans whispered among themselves, but none stepped back. At last the scarred man nodded. He carried no armor, only a wooden spear hardened by fire. Yet his eyes held no fear. With steady steps, he entered the circle of open ground where the challenge would take place. The alien warrior lunged first, his claws flashing in the firelight. The ground shook under his charge. Any other species would have run or fallen to their knees. But the human did not retreat. He dodged to the side, fast and sharp, the spear striking like lightning against the alien's armor. It did not pierce, but the sound of wood against steel cracked through the night like thunder. The Deathworlder growled, striking again, but the human kept moving. He was smaller, weaker in appearance, yet his endurance was terrifying. Each time he was knocked down, he stood back up. Each time he bled, he pressed forward. Minutes turned into long, grueling hours. Sweat poured, blood mixed with earth, yet the human never yielded. The Deathworlders watching began to shift uneasily. This was not prey. This was not weakness. This was something else, something they recognized. Survival. Finally, the human collapsed to one knee, his body trembling with exhaustion. The alien warrior raised his claw for the final strike. But then the human lifted his head. His eyes burned with fire. With a roar that shocked even the predators of the forest, he drove his spear upward, straight into the joint of the alien's armor. The giant howled in pain, stumbling backward. The human fell, too drained to rise again. But his strike had left a mark, both on the alien's body and on the minds of every Deathworlder who witnessed it. The duel ended not in victory or defeat, but in something more dangerous, respect. That night, the Deathworlder commander stood apart from his warriors, staring at the distant fires of human villages. His second-in-command approached, his voice low. "They do not fight like others. They do not break." The commander's face was grim. "Strength is not only in muscle, it is in will. And their will is stronger than I have seen in centuries." The next days brought more tests. The Deathworlders observed humans in storms, carrying on with their lives while lightning split the skies. They watched them dive into oceans filled with predators and return alive. They followed them into deserts where the heat scorched the land, only to see humans endure, sharing water, carrying one another when strength failed. Everywhere they looked, humans survived what should have been impossible. In one village, they saw a child fall into a river swollen by flood. Before the Deathworlders could even react, 3 humans leapt into the raging current. The water battered them against rocks, tore at their skin, yet they pulled the child free and returned to shore. Bruised, bleeding, and gasping for air, they still smiled at the boy they had saved. The alien soldiers said nothing, but in their hearts they felt something new. Unease. One evening, while camping on a ridge above a human settlement, a Deathworlder soldier muttered, "We are predators. We have conquered worlds. But these humans, They live as if the world itself is their enemy, and yet they do not surrender. The commander answered only with silence. His gaze lingered on the humans below, who were laughing around a fire, despite the scars on their bodies, despite the hardships they endured. It was then he realized the truth. Strength was not only about killing. Strength was about refusing to die, and humanity, against all odds, had mastered it. The final test came unexpectedly. A predator from the deep forests, larger than a tank, emerged one night. Its hide was thick, its jaws dripping with venom, its roar shaking the earth. Even the Deathworlders stepped back in caution. But the humans did not run. Hunters with torches and spears surrounded the beast, moving in coordinated lines. They shouted through fire and pressed the monster back. One man was struck down, yet others pulled him away while the rest fought on. The predator lashed, clawed and bit, but the humans held their ground. At last, with a spear through its eye and fire against its hide, the beast fell. The humans stood panting, wounded, but alive. The Deathworlders, watching from the shadows, were silent. Their commander finally spoke, his voice heavy. "They are not prey. They are not weak. They are like us. No." His gaze sharpened as the humans raised their torches in triumph. "They may be stronger." The words spread like fire through the alien ranks. No Deathworlder had ever admitted such a thing before. Yet none could deny what they had seen. The humans were no accident of nature. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who refused to die. The clash, the Deathworlders had seen enough tests. They had seen humans fight storms, climb mountains, and face predators that should have killed them. But questions still burned in their minds. Could humans stand against them directly? Could these fragile-looking beings face warriors bred in the hardest worlds of the galaxy? The answer came sooner than they expected. It began in the Valley of Red Stone, where the humans had built a settlement along a rushing river. The Deathworlder commander led his soldiers down the cliffs to confront them. Their armor gleamed under the sun. Their weapons glowed with alien energy. They marched with the weight of an empire that had crushed countless foes. The humans saw them coming, but did not scatter. Instead, men and women formed lines, their weapons simple, bows, spears, and blades forged by hand. Their leader stepped forward, a woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She raised her spear and planted it into the ground. Behind her, the humans stood silent, waiting. The commander stopped at the edge of the settlement. His voice rumbled like thunder. "Stand down." "You cannot resist us," the woman answered, her voice firm. "We will never kneel." The silence that followed was heavy. The Deathworlders expected fear. Instead, they found defiance. The first strike came suddenly. An alien warrior raised his cannon, sending a bolt of burning light across the field. The humans dove aside, the blast tearing into stone. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, the humans were still standing. Their leader shouted, and with a roar they charged. The clash exploded with chaos. Humans moved in waves, throwing fire-tipped arrows and rushing with spears. The Deathworlders swung their claws and weapons, their strength shaking the ground. But the humans were fast. They struck, retreated, then struck again. They moved together, covering one another, protecting the weak, dragging the fallen out of danger. One alien soldier lifted a human into the air, his claws ready to rip him apart. But the human bit down hard on the alien's arm, blood spilling, and refused to let go. Another human drove a spear into the alien's side, forcing him to drop his prey. The commander watched, his eyes narrowing. Humans bled, but they did not break. They fought as if pain only made them stronger. The battle raged for hours. Every time the Deathworlders thought they had won, the humans returned, throwing rocks when weapons failed, clawing with bare hands if nothing else remained. Their screams were not of fear but of fury. In the end, both sides pulled back. The Deathworlders were not defeated, but they were not victorious either. Too many had fallen, too many were wounded, and the humans, though bloodied and battered, still stood. Their fires burned again that night, their songs rising louder than ever. The second-in-command spoke quietly as they watched the flames from a distance. "This should be impossible. They have no armor, no machines, nothing like us. Yet they stood against us." The commander did not reply at once. His gaze stayed on the humans, their faces lit by fire, their voices unbroken. Finally, he said, "They fight with something we cannot measure. They fight with spirit." The soldier frowned. "Spirit cannot stop steel." The commander shook his head slowly. "No, but it can outlast it." That night, whispers spread through the Deathworlder camp. Some claimed humans were cursed. Others said they were born from the planet itself, molded by storms and fire. Some even feared they were the first sign of an enemy greater than anything the galaxy had known. But for the commander, there was only one truth. The humans were not prey. They were rivals. As dawn broke, he looked across the valley one last time. Smoke rose from human fires, but so did laughter. Even after battle, after blood and pain, they found a way to stand together. The commander clenched his fist, the weight of realization pressing against him. "Today was a clash," he muttered. "Tomorrow may be war." And deep in his heart, for the first time in centuries, a shadow of doubt stirred. If humans could endure the clash with nothing but wood and stone, what would happen when they reached for the stars? The Deathworlders had always believed they were the strongest. But now, standing on Earth, watching humans rise from the ashes of battle, the commander feared the truth. Perhaps they had never been the only Deathworlders. The realization, the Deathworlders gathered in silence. The clash with humans had shaken them more than any battle in recent memory. They were not used to doubt, but doubt now pressed against every warrior's mind. Inside their camp, the commander stood with his war council. Torches burned against the dark sky, but the firelight did not warm them. Every soldier could still hear the humans' voices rising in victory songs after the clash. Those songs did not sound like prey celebrating survival. They sounded like predators marking territory. The second in command broke the silence. They should not be alive. Their world is chaos. Their bodies are weak. And yet they endure storms, rivers, deserts, predators. Even us. How is this possible? The commander's eyes glowed faintly under his helmet. His voice was low, heavy. "Perhaps we have been blind. We thought strength was only muscle, claws, and armor. But strength is more. Humans show it in ways we have forgotten," the others muttered uneasily. Deathworlders had always believed themselves unmatched. To admit another species could rival them was unthinkable, and yet none could deny what they had witnessed. One soldier stepped forward, anger burning in his chest. "They cannot compare to us. They are still soft. They still bleed. If we attack with full strength, we will crush them." The commander turned his gaze sharply on him. "Did you not see the battle? Did you not hear their laughter in pain? Crushing them may not be so simple." The soldier fell silent, but his eyes betrayed his unease. In the following days, the Deathworlders studied the humans carefully. They saw them hunting together, dividing food so none would starve. They saw them build shelters in storms, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors. They saw them bury their dead, mourning with tears, but standing taller the next day. It was then the commander understood the truth. Humans were not strong because of what they had. They were strong because of what they gave each other. They carried one another through suffering. They fought not only for survival, but for each other's survival. That was a power the Deathworlders had never valued. One night the commander walked alone to the ridge above the human village. He watched them from the shadows as they worked by firelight. A child laughed as his father lifted him high. Hunters returned with prey, sharing it freely with the group. Wounded men and women sat among them, their scars fresh, yet their eyes shining with pride. The commander whispered to himself, "We thought we were the only Deathworlders, but perhaps we were wrong." Behind him, the second in command approached. "What will we do?" The commander's face remained unreadable. "We must decide if we will face them as enemies or respect them as equals." But deep inside, he already knew the answer. The humans were more than a rival species. They were a mirror, proof that survival was not owned by one people, one world, or one empire. It was something greater, something shared by any being willing to fight against the odds. The realization spread quietly through the alien ranks. Some resisted, refusing to accept it. Others whispered in the dark, their voices trembling. One soldier muttered, "If they are this strong now, with only wood and stone, what will they become when they wield fire like us? What will they become when they reach the stars? The commander had the same thought. A vision haunted him. Ships of metal leaving Earth's sky, carrying humans into the galaxy, their spirit burning brighter than any sun. If that day came, the Deathworlders might no longer be. Feared as the greatest survivors, they might be remembered only as the first to realize the truth that humans were not prey, the truth that humans were Deathworlders. 2. The commander turned away from the ridge, his voice heavy as stone. We came to test them. Instead, they tested us, and they have shown us what we refused to see. His second-in-command asked softly, "What is that?" The commander's reply was simple, yet it struck like thunder. That survival is not strength alone. Survival is will, and humanity's will is greater than we imagined. As dawn rose, the Deathworlders looked once more upon the human settlements. Smoke rose into the morning sky, but so did the sound of human voices, working, laughing, surviving. The commander clenched his fists, his chest heavy with the weight of realization. For centuries, the Deathworlders had believed themselves alone at the top. Now standing on Earth, they knew the truth. They were not alone, and somewhere deep inside, fear began to grow. The new fear. The Deathworlders had seen storms, mountains, predators, and even battle with humans. But the greatest shock had not come from what humans did. It came from what they might one day do. For the first time, the alien warriors spoke in hushed voices around their fires. There was no laughter, no boasts of strength. Instead, there were questions. Questions none of them had ever thought to ask before. If they survived this much, with only wood and stone, one soldier muttered, what happens when they hold steel and fire? Another whispered, what happens when they build ships like ours? When they rise into the stars? The commander sat apart, silent, but their words echoed the thoughts that already haunted him. For centuries, the Deathworlders had believed they were unmatched. They had ruled through fear, walking across weaker civilizations like hunters among prey. But the humans were different. They were not prey. They were not weak. They were something more dangerous. They were a storm waiting to break free. The commander remembered the human leader's voice in the valley. We will never kneel. Those words had cut deeper than any blade. Not because of the defiance itself, but because of the certainty behind it. Humans did not fight as if they hoped to win. They fought as if losing was never an option. That kind of will could not be conquered. It could only spread. Days passed, and the Deathworlders prepared to leave Earth. Their mission had been to measure, to test, to dominate if possible. But now none spoke of conquest. None dared. The humans had burned their defiance into alien memory. Before they departed, the commander climbed once more to the ridge above the villages. He watched as the humans worked together, carrying stone, forging tools, laughing despite their bruises and scars. Children ran through mud, their laughter ringing against the sky. Hunters returned with prey, greeted not with fear but with songs. The commander's second-in-command joined him. Do we leave them behind? The commander's jaw tightened. We leave for now, but we cannot leave what we have seen. Humanity will not stay here forever. One day they will walk among the stars. And when they do, his voice trailed into silence. The second-in-command finished the thought, his voice heavy. We may no longer be the ones others fear. That night, before the Deathworlders' ships rose into the sky, the commander left a single mark carved into stone at the edge of the forest. The mark was a warning, a memory, and a confession all at once. It read, "They are like us, perhaps stronger." When the ships broke through the clouds and vanished into the dark beyond, the humans below looked up. They had seen the strange lights in the sky before. Some thought they were spirits. Others thought they were stars falling. But whatever they were, the humans did not fear them. They simply turned back to their fires, their families, their survival. For survival was all they had ever known, and it was enough. Far above Earth, in the silence of the void, the commander sat in his chamber. His claws tapped against the metal table as he whispered words he had never spoken before. We are not alone. We never were. The weight of those words pressed against him, heavier than any armor he had ever worn, for he knew what they truly meant. The galaxy had not yet seen the full power of humanity, but it would, perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not for centuries. But one day, humanity would rise, and when that day came, the galaxy would tremble, because the Deathworlders had discovered something that terrified them more than any beast or battle. Humans did not just survive Deathworlds, humans made Deathworlds, and if they carried that fire into the stars, there would be no limit to what they could become. The commander closed his eyes, his mind heavy with both dread and awe. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear, not of storms, not of predators, not of war. He felt fear of the future, and that future had a name: humanity.